Hello and welcome to episode 133 of our SAP on Azure video podcast. Today is March 2nd, and together with Robert and Goran, we are here to talk about anything related to SAP and Microsoft. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
So we often talk about huge enterprise implementations with SAP on Azure, migrating terabytes of data to Azure, or we talk with colleagues that have tons of years of experience in SAP and Microsoft. But you have to start somewhere. So today we go back to the beginning, basically. At some universities, students can learn how to work with an SAP system, learn how to understand business processes, and also develop in ABAP, for example. So today we have Christian Drumm, a professor at the FH Aachen University of Applied Science with us. And he has been actually teaching students about SAP for quite some time. So for the last semester, Martin, who's also here, sorry about that, Martin, Martin, myself, and Christian, we basically teamed up to also include Microsoft in the picture. And I think it turned out to be quite successful. So together with a few customers, the students teamed up and developed some nice integrations. But as always, before we hand over to Christian to learn a little more about the setup and what was accomplished, let's quickly take a look at some of the news from this week. And we start with a blog post on DNS integration. Robert.
Yeah, that was a very interesting post from a colleague from IMA. I hope that I pronounced that properly.
Mark, I think, yeah.
Yeah, so actually he wrote the very interesting topic about DNS combination with SAP RISE. Yeah, so he tried to cover all combination of DNS, how to set up it, how to use if we are using DNS in virtual machines, if we are using managed services, if we are using Azure private zones and so on. So he tried somehow to define all those possible combinations with very nice diagrams. If you scroll a little bit down, you will see very nice pictures. And it's very nice overview. It's of course not covering how to configure that. There's also some behind the scenes, so to say, some tips and tricks. But it's very, very nice overview with all those nice diagrams. Okay, what you can do, what is happening, which features you can use from Azure to improve your setup, and so on, so on. It's a very nice blog. It's not so big. It's not so big, but it's somehow covering everything in one very nice blog. Yeah.
And I think it is a typical example that, I mean, there's a DNS server in RISE, then you might have your own DNS server on premise, and maybe you have a DNS server in your Azure subscription. So not in your RISE Azure subscription, but in your custom Azure subscription. And how do we bring all of this together? So
and there's also disaster recovery scenarios a little bit down, you see, and there's also, if you're using some managed services like Azure Private Resolver, so private DNS zone and so on. So there's a very nice overview of all those combinations and what you need to do if you want to use some of those services altogether. Of course, and what is also very important, there's always something on the premise. So this is really a really good hybrid scenario.
Nice. Yeah, cool blog post.
And it's always, if DNS is not working in your environment, then
it's always DNS.
You can have the most beautiful Power App application, but it will not help you.
Yeah. So SAP system is up, but not reachable. Yeah. Okay.
So the next thing, Azure NetApp Files.
Yeah. So this one is, shows nice some improvement. NetApp was initially original on a lower volume size, and currently it's supported up to 500 terabytes. Honestly, I have no idea who needs such a big space, even for the HANA. I mean, generally it's size of the database equal to RAM size, more or less. But anyway, obviously some customer did ask for it, and now it is a possibility to have really up to 500 TB. Size of the volume. Yeah.
Remember, we talked about this 100 terabyte Oracle migration that we had some time ago, and so it looks like that was then the limit till then, 100 terabyte, and now the limit is increased to 500. So I think that's pretty cool.
This is pretty cool. Exactly. Sometimes there are those monster customers which would need, sometimes have really bigger. I mean, sometimes they would also in the migration optimize maybe something the space, but yeah, maybe even in the migration they might need such a bigger space. So now at least we don't have those kind of limits, which is great.
Perfect.
And another side is that pool volume size which customer needs to buy it was reduced from 4 terabytes to 2 terabytes. And it's all, again, it's about the cost or reducing the cost. I think this is particularly of interest if the customer would use maybe the NetApp for for those non-DB stuff like SAP MNT or SAP Trans. Generally, those file shares are not so big, and they need to buy. I mean, in the past they need to buy 4 terabyte. I mean, basically already overpaying something here. It's a lower. So I mean, it's helping a customer to reduce the cost in the case they use a NetApp. So some nice improvements, definitely. Yeah.
Cool.
At some point, Holger, we should share the guides on HANA offloading. Yeah, I'm always wondering if I hear 500 terabyte, if this is actually something that you need every day, or if it's just the lack of capability to reduce the size with all the things that you actually don't need, and you just keep everything. Yeah.
As well, but you do have like those Oracle stuff also with.
It's not all
hundreds
in memory, of course.
It's not all in memory, and then they read from sometimes. So you wouldn't believe it, but we do have it here.
Yeah, but this is the sickness of classical on-premise vertical thinking. You know, if I need more, I will just invest more.
Just get more, yeah.
Because it doesn't matter. Yeah, so data cleansing on premise is always very complicated. But now you have scalability, and it's somehow returning investment back if you are optimize your systems in the cloud.
Yeah. Okay.
There's one more feature about Azure NetApp we didn't discuss. I think was also announcement in the same times around all those announcements, is that now on the volumes you can also do what you can use on or what you usually do on the NetApp on premise, is that you can decide, okay, how much space of that volume is dedicated for which users, and now you can also do that in Azure NetApp Files.
Okay.
So there was also an announcement. I don't know, is public preview, is already GA, but it's also now interesting that you can define the volume, but you can say, okay, this part of volume is only for Goran, this part of volume is only for Robert. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay. Cool. Good. Quickly moving on then. I mean, and going from the pure infrastructure to a little more high level or higher up the stack, I would say, not high level. But Chetan and Chetan Desai, sorry for butchering your name if you're watching. He was on the show, I don't know, a year ago or something like that, where he already talked about the integration of SAP SuccessFactors in Azure Active Directory and how we can really replicate identities. So this typically an employee is onboarded in SuccessFactors. How do we make this available in Azure Active Directory? And they provided or created a new video series where they talk about these kinds of integrations. And I thought it's fairly, it's like 6 minutes, and there are 2 more, and it's really nice. It's give you a nice additional overview of also what's new. I mean, they're not only here only concentrating on SuccessFactors. They're also talking about Workday, but I think it's just great to see this integration of the HR system with the IT systems here. Another interesting thing was published by ASUG. So similarly like DSAG, and we had talked about DSAG, ASUG is also doing some customer researches. So this is all public. They have some high-level information here, but you can also download the results. You don't need to be a member. You can just provide your information, and then you get access to the to this report here. And there are some interesting things that I thought were quite interesting. So there's this technology shifts where there's clearly the statement on integration between SAP and non-SAP systems. So it's really about not only looking at SAP, but really the whole landscape. And I mean, a few other things. Security is still or is again very much here on the list. That is, I think, something that I found interesting. The other thing was also when we talk about top digital transformation technologies, data and analytics is even before cloud and automation. So I mean, first of all, having these 3 pillars is interesting, but I was actually surprised to see really data analytics as the clear number one from customers. So all the things, when we look at the work that that we talked about with Ulrich Christ, for example, with the whole integration in Azure Data Factory in Synapse, and the scenarios that we do then with Power BI, and I think that perfectly fits and reflects basically also the information that is here the result of this ASUG story or ASUG survey. Another interesting thing was also, so you can see here the top innovation barriers, the top purchasing authorities and stuff like that. But then I also found this one, the top issues among SAP customers, really interesting. And there are these three buckets. And the first one, I think, was also really interesting, this maintaining knowledgeable staff and turnover. There's definitely a lot of turnover. Employees leave companies, and I think that's definitely something that we saw also during COVID. But we were just discussing before starting the recording, maybe that's also age, that all seasoned, very experienced SAP users in the company are retiring. So I think, here there's this losing valuable internal expertise and need to recruit employees with new skills or with the required skills. So I think that was something really interesting. And the report goes on, so it's really interesting if you want to spend some time. I think it's definitely worth it. Moving on, the IBP, the Integrated Planning for Supply Chain. Remember, we also had some sessions about that on some Teams integrations in the past. Now here, Zoltan created another blog post where he talks about how the process management from IBP can be integrated into Teams and what you can do with that. And I thought it was a really interesting scenario. And he was basically talking or showing how to do that, how this integration can be done. And they're using here Power Automate. So you can see here within Teams, they're just calling Power Automate and then creating a flow to connect to the IBP system, retrieving information. And it's a nice flow, how you can leverage the capabilities of Teams with your IBP system using, in this case here, a Power Automate flow. And speaking of Power Automate and in general the Power Platform, just yesterday we had the first stop of our roadshow on SAP and Power Platform in Munich. And honestly, the first thing, I was extremely surprised, and I think I cannot click on these images. Okay, I wanted to show you the huge feedback and resonance that we got. So we really had the room was actually too small, so I don't know how we had much over 100 participants there. So there was a lot of interest from the customers on Power Platform and SAP, and I think that was just great to see how well this topic is currently resonating. So if you still have time, if you're interested, we'll be in Cologne next week, and then in April we'll be in Hamburg. There are always lots of partners and customer stories. So I think if you are interested in low-code and SAP, then that's definitely something to look out for. But actually, there's something almost closer, not too far away, and that's the DSAG Technology Days. And it will, as always, kick off with a keynote, and there are speakers from SAP. There are obviously speakers from DSAG there as well. And then there's obviously a full agenda with lots of interesting topics. And luckily, Azure or Microsoft, we also have some really good sessions, I would say. Here, Martin, you have a nice developer-oriented session about the different SDKs, how to develop, or actually maybe you want to do a quick advertising block for your session.
Yeah, you will see the SAP Cloud SDK running on Azure. There will be GitHub, Copilot, AI explaining code sections, and also new ways of deploying with just one command. So you have a set that accelerates your development big time. So there will be, I believe it will be eye-opening.
So all the developer buzzwords are checked off. So the bingo is there. So perfect. No, I really think this is a fantastic session that really shows also the developer what things you can do to really have a nice, as you said here, modern application development. But that's not all. There's also a hands-on session, which I think is really interesting. So together with Sebastian and Martin, so both of them were on the show previously to talk about Sentinel, how Sentinel can work with the SAP system. We'll have a hands-on session there. So if you are attending DSAG Technology Days, if you want to really implement Sentinel and the scenario to react or to lock users automatically when there are some suspicious activities in the SAP system, then I think that's a fantastic opportunity to join and get your hands dirty with this integration.
And a couple of seats are still left, yeah? So almost sold out, but a couple of seats are still left. So be quick.
Perfect. Good. So with this, Christian, we kept you waiting for some time, but we didn't have any news for the last few weeks, so now we needed to catch up a little. Maybe you can quickly introduce yourself. I said you're already working, or you are working as a professor in the FH Aachen, but maybe you can talk a little more about it, what you do there, and how long have you been there, and so on.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for inviting me. Yeah, my name is Christian Drumm. I'm, as you said, a professor for information systems at the University of Applied Sciences in Aachen. I've been there already for more than 5 years, 5.5 years, or maybe it's even 6 years already. Yeah, so time flies. Before that, I had I was working as a SAP consultant for quite some time. Doing SAP implementation projects, mainly in the utilities industry. And before that, a long time ago, I did my PhD in cooperation with SAP Research in Karlsruhe and the University of Karlsruhe. So
cool.
That's where I'm coming from. Yeah, but now I'm basically a full-time professor and focusing on information systems, in particular ERP and SAP.
And ERP means SAP, exactly. I was just going to say that. And with your history, obviously, you are very excited about SAP, and you teach students the ways of SAP, basically.
Yeah, so what we do, so I have different courses of study. We have business students and information system students, and they all are forced to work one semester with an SAP system. So in the beginning, so most of them are not so very excited when they see the system the first time. But I'm doing my best to get them excited. And then the information system students, they also have the possibility to dig a little bit deeper, to do some programming in a SAP system, and that's already so. Yeah, what we are talking about, or what we will be talking about today, one of my lectures, where we try to go a little bit, so to say, under the hood and see how the systems work and how everything works together.
Cool. Yeah. And in the past, I mean, you have done these sessions, or not sessions, these semesters, these courses for quite some years now, and I think the as you said, some students then have the opportunity to really take a closer look at the SAP system, do some development in ABAP, and do some extensions there and stuff like that.
Yeah. So what always has been my focus, or what I would try to do, is to give students kind of a feeling how the world is out there, right? And at the university, we tend to do greenfield projects. You take some technology and you build something, you know, whatever. And you always start on the greenfield. And probably for 99% of the students, that will never happen in their work life again. So they will go to some company and there is this large infrastructure already in place, different systems created over years and years, and they have to build something in addition. So, and that's what I'm trying to do in this lecture. So get them, gives them a first experience of the integrations that is needed, yeah, how you connect together different technologies. And in the past, I was focusing on SAP technology mainly. I've always done this with SAP technology, basically because I'm most familiar with it. So
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I was quite certain that I could solve problems students will have. Yeah. But then about a year and a half ago, you approached me and we talked a little bit if something like this would be possible with Microsoft technology. And I said, yeah, why not? Let's give it a try. And that's basically what happened in the last semester.
Cool. And now, before we go into the details, so looking back, did it work? Are you happy that we talked 1.5 years ago, or are you saying, oh no? And we'll cut the piece out in case if it's not.
So there are two parts to the answer. One part is my personal perspective. One is the perspective of the students. From my personal perspective, it was very valuable. Basically, I never understood the whole low code thing. I always thought, why do you need low code? Yeah, if you can develop something, just do proper development and not this low code stuff. And then I tried the Power Platform, and it totally changed my mind. So I needed to try it out so that I have at least a little bit of feeling what the students will do. And it really was eye-opening for me. So from my perspective, it was very valuable. From the lecture, from the student, from the university perspective, I think it worked out very well as well. To be honest, in the past, my lecture was not so well received. So not many students dared to work with the SAP systems again. So I scared them off in the previous semester. But this year, so last year I did something differently, and this year I was expecting again like 5 to 10 students, and suddenly there were 35 students who wanted to take part in the lecture. So that was really different, which gave me a little bit of headache in the planning in the beginning, but in the end everything worked out fine. And I think it was really, really useful, really interesting, and yeah, definitely open to doing it again.
So what I also found super interesting, and you said even without Microsoft that this is also a focus area from you, that you even in the past try to really partner with others, with customers, to make it more realistic for the students, that they not just only read a book basically and are good in theory, but you're really trying to make this more real life tangible in your session. I thought that was something that I also really liked. And I mean, when I looked at some of the results, some of the blog posts that your students have published in the past, I think that you could really see that they were happy with what you have taught them, that it's not only just okay, let's do some SAP ABAP development. No, but really, what can you do with this? And I think for me that was also really great. And I think Martin, you were also finding a lot of customers there, that we could team up the students with actual customers that work then on this project.
Yeah, and the companies, they were sold immediately. So to them, it didn't matter what we are going to do with Christian, but getting their hands on the young minds and people who are willing to engage in such an exercise where you do integrations with other systems, especially if it's that complex.
Yeah, from my point of view, it's always a win-win situation, right? So you just talked about the challenge that all the finding appropriate workforce, finding people who know the stuff, or getting people at all, right? It's a big trouble for a lot of companies, and having the opportunity for a company, especially not the Microsoft and SAPs of the world, but the mid-sized companies none of the students have ever heard of, to get to work for a whole semester with the students, show them what these companies do, that it's interesting stuff, that they have interesting challenges. That's very valuable for the companies. And on the other hand, the students really like working on real projects, right? So of course, from a university perspective, we have to teach the theory, we have to lay some foundations, but as soon as you have like a real project, a real life challenge, in my experience, the students are always a lot more engaged. They're happy to work more than they would in a normal lecture, and it's always for them as well an opportunity to learn a lot and get a lot from the lecture in the end.
I actually so yesterday I was at this Power Platform and SAP Roadshow, and we had several customers that presented their story basically, and I think I think there were even more than I think there were several customers that really talked about their journey with the Power Platform, and in a lot of cases it started with a Werkstudent, with a student that came into the company, and then the challenge for the company was, well, I cannot give this student work in ABAP or develop a C# project or whatever, because that's too complicated. It takes too long to get started. So they gave the student the Power Platform and said, look, build something with this. And in several customer situations, that was the nucleus for a Power Platform Center of Excellence that they then started to build a first app, that they then started to connect to an SAP system. I mean, obviously here, yesterday, we only heard stories about SAP and Power Platform, obviously, but that was also something that I found extremely interesting, that this low-code approach, obviously here in this case with the Power Platform, enabled the students to quickly get started, build something, and then integrate into an SAP system. And I think we saw similar things also with your students there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we can maybe talk a little bit about the whole spectrum of projects we did this semester. So we had 4 customers who provided use cases for the semester, and we had teams of, I guess, 4 to 5 students working on each use case, and they spread a really broad range of topics. The 4 companies we had were the FEV, which is a Aachen-based engineering company. As far as I know, they have been working a lot in the automotive industry, but I think they're trying to go to other areas as well. Yeah, they came up with a scenario where it's basically about onboarding new people in the company. They have a large system landscape, and if a new employee comes in, he needs a user in the SAP system. He needs a Microsoft Office or Office 365 user, and what have you, tens of systems, and that's all done manually. And of course, I mean, I guess every one of you has experienced this. When you start at a new customer, 1 or 2 or 3 things always don't work because they are done manually. Somebody forgot to do something important, some message got lost, whatever, and they tried to automate the scenario using Power Platform and Power Platform tools. Then we had a totally different scenario at the DKV. It's a mobility service provider. So they offer cards for logistics companies to do all the payment at the gas stations and stuff like this. And they wanted to use the Power Platform to get and enhance data for potential customers. So they know there are several sources out there for customer data. How big is the company? What are the main people? Where are they located, and so on. Right now, they collect all this data manually before deciding if this customer is of interest for them, so if they try to engage with them. And this was the project they tried to automate again, using a Power Platform. Total different focus. Different tools were used in the end, but also very interesting. Then we had a startup, Aachen-based startup, OEE.AI. They do intelligence in production systems, so in the production plant, on the shop floor, not in the SAP system, but really where the blue-collar workers are. and they had an idea of basically integrating some of their data into Teams meetings, because in these Teams meetings, all the problems in the plants are always discussed. And right now, people go and try to find some reports, and they can't share them and what have you. And they had an API in place and wanted to integrate this just as a simple additional application in the Teams. In a Teams meeting, and that worked out really nice. I think that was one of the nicest demos we got in the end. It's a startup, so they had an API in place. It was one of the things much simpler for those students, like compared to all the other companies, which hadn't the experience of building APIs beforehand. And then there was another local company, Factur, which also tried to automate internal processes related to the work council. So they're in a situation where consultants sometimes need to work on a weekend or late hours because a project needs to go live. But they have a work council, and the work council decides you only allowed to work Monday to Friday from 9 to 5. So there is a whole process involving lots of papers going back and forth, asking for permission, and the permission is granted and so on. And they automated this process using a Power Platform, so that in the end you don't need all these paper-based processes anymore, but can just send a request. The request is approved or declined, and then afterwards you can go to work or you can't. So it's a really broad spectrum, really interesting projects. All with different challenges, obviously, but I really liked the result of all the projects in the end.
So only good grades there, Christian. Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I haven't finally graded. The students are probably waiting for the grades since quite a time. I definitely have to do it. But yeah, it was very good results, right? And most of the people were really motivated. There are a few which were less motivated, and obviously I have to take care with it when grading to be fair, but the results were great.
Would you also say that this actually also no-code, low-code approach and platform actually helps and speed up and simplifies the creation of such an integration, different integration scenarios? I mean, just imagine if you would need to do without it, and plus we're talking about the students who, of course, have in general less experience, which makes it harder for them. So with low-code, no-code, approach, it's probably, I hope, creation of such a solution would be much more simpler.
Yeah, yes and no, right? So yes, of course, there are scenarios which work really, really nicely, right? So, for example, it's easy to add a barcode scanner to a mobile app to read some barcode data and send this information to an API. On the other hand, some of the projects had really special challenges. And yeah, I mean, we had the two experts, Holger and Martin, on the team. But one of the challenges for me was in the SAP ecosystem, I always knew where to point the students and tell them, don't do this, use that approach, that'll work. I couldn't do this in the Microsoft environment with the same quality, basically. So there were a few situations where students tested something, and in the end, they had the experience, okay, it was a sensible approach, but it just doesn't work. We need to take another approach. So I think it's a combination of both. On the one hand, yeah, low code helps you to build something quickly, but as soon as you go and work on real challenges, you always come to the situation where you find a tough problem and you have to think about how to solve it and which service or which tool is the best one for this challenge. And I think, yeah, doesn't matter if it's low code, no code, or coding in ABAP, but you have to just crack the problem.
It's part of the scientific journey, right? To trial something, see what the results are, and then adjusting your approach if required. To me, also was very interesting that some, or like 2 teams, I think, chose the robotic process automation at some point for their validation, which was really strange to me because I would have thought the way the problem was presented to them that they would go for an API-based solution in the tooling itself. But they chose the RPA because it was the first thing that was presented to them when they started searching. And since it worked right out of the box and it was desktop based and nothing else was required, this is what they liked, yeah, for the solution. And I'm wondering now if customers approach it the same way and also come up, yeah, and how many RPA solutions that we have out there, which are the worst fit for the problem technology-wise or computer science-wise, but the easiest one to get started with. Yeah? So that was one of the biggest learnings from me when I saw the students cracking the different problems.
Yeah, it's like always, right? The dirty hack is the thing that survives the longest. And I can think of a few things I did in the past, which probably still are out there and should have been implemented totally differently.
Yeah, but that was for me also really great to see. First of all, like what the students did, what tools they used, but then also really to apply. And again, this is coming back to me to this this collaboration and then applying this to real life problems. So not a textbook problem or something like that, where you give them a challenge or maybe where there's even a tutorial or whatever available, but really there is a need, there's a challenge for a company, and then the students worked with the company to fix or to resolve these issues. And I thought that was, or to address these requirements, and I thought that was really a fantastic approach there.
Yeah, and although the way we did it, right? I guess we didn't talk about this so far, that we try to create like an agile project where we have weekly meetings and the possibility to not throw a problem over the fence in the beginning of the semester, and then there is just one presentation in the end, and you could go in the totally wrong direction. But instead, we had this weekly feedback loops where the customers from the company saw what students created, and that also gave them ideas what it's possible. So they reshaped their requirements. Yeah, like in the real life, like in a real project. But what we were able to build something which in some cases was not exactly that what we had in mind when we started off, but still a valuable solution.
Exactly like in real life, I would say. So
yeah.
I think it cannot get better than that. I mean, the students really were learning and seeing how it works once they're done with their grade at the university. So I think that was really perfect. Cool. So what are the next plans now? I mean, first of all, the students hopefully get their grades. I mean, feel free to share them now here on the podcast. We'll release it on Saturday.
I haven't done them, so I can't share anything yet. I have to do it. Yeah, I think I'm already behind the required time to publish.
Next session, dear students, your notes are published in SAP and Azure channel. So take a look.
Yeah. Watch it there. No. So no, what are your next steps with this?
Yeah, so right now this lecture we talked about is always running in the winter semester. So my next step is the summer semester. So right now my focus is on the summer semester, where I don't teach any detailed courses in such an area. I teach again my SAP introductory course. But for the next winter semester, definitely there will be again this lecture. I hope there will be as many students again as this semester, and I'm definitely planning to integrate the Microsoft tooling in the whole project setup again, because I think it was a really nice addition. For one, it's just a technology that a lot of companies use anyway, so it's good students have knowledge of it. And the second part for me is that it opens up the possible topics I can do in this lecture a little bit. I'm not focused anymore just on SAP, so I can it's not only develop something in the ERP system and integrate some data, but I can open up the topics a little bit more. And it's exactly the focus I'm looking for, like integration, integration of different solutions with the technologies that are out there, because that's, we saw it in this in the study you presented as well, that integration is a big topic for the company. So.
And then you went from 10 students to 35 in this last winter semester. So if we take that trajectory, next time you need the Audimax.
Yeah, no, that's not going to happen, because our information systems course of study is limited to, I guess, 55 students. So in the long run, if everyone decides to do this course, which I don't think so, the maximum will be 55. So there's no possibility to go about, might be 60 in one semester, but yeah.
Well, I think Martin and I are definitely gonna be there to support you again. I think we also had a lot of lessons learned in the whole project, and I think for both of us it was also really fun and really interesting to follow the students, to share some of the information, but then to also see the progress and the results. And as Martin said, to really understand some of the things, why they selected certain technologies, why they didn't select others. So I think that was really great. And I think with the lessons learned from the first semester now, I guess it will be great to have a repeat then in the winter semester.
Yeah, it's nice to give something back. I also did my bachelor's in 2012 at the University of Applied Sciences in Aachen. So that's like giving something back and coming home a little. Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that you studied at our university. So and maybe one more thing, right? We have been talking about this. We already together contacted other professors to tell them about this approach. So if anyone out there who teaches at university is listening and is interested in what we've done, most of the stuff is public on GitHub anyway. So feel free to reach out and we can talk in detail.
No, absolutely, exactly, yeah. So we already got some interested other professors from other departments and universities. So I think absolutely, if there's additional interest, then reach out to Christian. He's the single point of contact to distribute. Okay, perfect. Christian, again, I mean, for me, it was really great also working with you on this project. I think, as I said, I think Martin and I, we learned a lot, and it was really fun to work with you and the students. We would be happy to continue this in the next semester, and let's see, if there are others, as you said, let's see how we can scale. But I think that was really great. And then thanks for joining today to share your insights, your stories with the students. I think that's really something that is super important. I mean, students are super important right now, obviously, to get them into the workforce. As you said, there's a huge skill gap, there's a huge demand. So it's always great to work with students and also onboard them to SAP and Microsoft. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for inviting me. Okay, great. Then thank you, everyone. See you next time.
Next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.